Have you ever wondered what it would be like to speak with angels, not as a fleeting intuition, not as a vague whisper of conscience, but as a direct and conscious dialogue? Imagine standing in the silence of your room when suddenly the air shifts. A presence makes itself known, not visible, yet undeniable. Words that are not words, thoughts that are not yours, begin to form in your mind. The message is clear, radiant, and filled with wisdom that transcends ordinary understanding. What if there existed a book that could teach you how to open this gateway? A book that claims to be the bridge between human and angelic realms. Throughout human history, people have sought contact with higher intelligences, prophets hearing divine voices, mystics conversing with beings of light, sages recording revelations that shaped civilizations. But among these tales lies a more secretive tradition, a set of instructions hidden within esoteric manuscripts, promising that the barrier between worlds can indeed be crossed if one knows the proper keys. This is not the realm of fantasy or idle imagination. This is a spiritual technology, a sacred science, preserved only for those daring enough to explore the unseen. In today's journey, we will explore one of the most mysterious of these texts, the book that teaches you to speak with angels. This is not just an artifact of ancient belief, but a living teaching that whispers through the corridors of time, calling seekers to rediscover its power. But before we open its hidden pages, we must first understand why humanity has always been so obsessed with angelic contact. Why did prophets, alchemists, and magicians spend their entire lives seeking the language of angels? Consider this. Language is not merely a tool for communication. It is the architecture of reality itself. The words we speak shape our thoughts, and our thoughts shape the world we perceive. If human language can move nations, ignite revolutions, or soothe the soul, then what could the language of angels achieve? Could it heal the deepest wounds of the heart, reveal the mysteries of the universe, or awaken powers sleeping within us? The book we will examine claims to do exactly this. It is not just a manual, but a map of consciousness. It speaks of alphabets not made by human hands, prayers that vibrate through hidden dimensions, and rituals that open the gates of perception. Yet it also carries warnings, because not every voice from beyond is benevolent, and not every seeker is ready to receive the truth. In today's journey, we will first uncover the historical and philosophical roots of angelic communication. We will trace how ancient cultures perceived these celestial messengers and why certain texts were revered as keys to unlocking their presence. Then we will dive into the heart of the book itself, its symbols, its language, and the principles it teaches for communion with the unseen. From there, we will explore how these teachings can be applied in your own spiritual journey, not as superstition, but as a living practice that awakens dormant faculties within the soul. And finally, we will ask, what does it truly mean to speak with angels? Is it about summoning radiant beings to stand before us, or is it about unlocking the angelic within ourselves? Perhaps the book is not just a guide to contact beings above us, but a mirror reflecting the higher aspects of our own consciousness. By the end of this journey, you may see language itself in a new way, not only as words spoken by the tongue, but as vibrations shaping your destiny. And perhaps you may find yourself listening more closely to the subtle whispers that surround you, realizing that you were never alone. This is the secret and the mystery, and it begins with the book that teaches you to speak with angels. To understand why a book teaching humans to speak with angels exists at all, we must step back into the timeless river of human history, into an era when the boundaries between the earthly and the divine were not yet so rigid. In ancient times, the world itself was a temple. The sky was alive with meaning, the earth vibrated with hidden forces, and every star was thought to be the eye of a celestial being watching over mankind. In such a world, communication with angels was not seen as strange. It was inevitable. In the Hebrew tradition, angels were not merely winged guardians, but messengers of divine intelligence. The very word malak means messenger, a being whose essence is the act of carrying knowledge from realms beyond human reach. The prophets of the Old Testament did not claim to invent their wisdom. They received it, often through direct encounters with angelic presences. Abraham, Daniel, Ezekiel, each reported visions filled with beings of fire, wheels within wheels, and voices speaking in thunderous clarity. These were not poetic exaggerations. To them, angelic speech was the root of revelation itself. But this pursuit was not limited to one culture. In Persia, Zoroastrianism spoke of the Amishaspentus, radiant spiritual intelligences who served as intermediaries between humanity and the eternal light of Ahura Mazda. In India, the Vedic tradition described the Devas, shining beings who presided over cosmic order and could be invoked through precise hymns and sacred sound vibrations. In Greece, philosophers like Plato suggested that the human soul was guided by a daemon, a personal spiritual intelligence acting as a bridge between mortal and divine thought. What unites these diverse traditions is the belief that the universe is layered, and that higher planes of existence are populated by intelligences who guide, protect, and instruct. And crucially, these beings can be reached. But the method of contact has always been shrouded in secrecy, for knowledge of this kind is power, and power, if misused, can destroy the unprepared seeker. This is where the mysterious book comes in. Throughout medieval Europe, whispers spread of texts that contained the angelic keys. Some of these manuscripts were said to be written in languages unknown to man, scripts revealed directly by angels to chosen mystics. The most famous among these was associated with Dr. John Dee, the court magician of Queen Elizabeth I. Alongside his scryer, Edward Kelly, Dee claimed to have received an angelic alphabet known as Enochian, a system of letters and invocations said to grant access to angelic realms. Whether one believes this account literally or sees it as symbolic, the fact remains: a structured system for angelic dialogue was born. Yet, Dee was not the first. Long before him, Jewish mystics of the Kabbalistic tradition meditated upon divine names, permutations of Hebrew letters, and angelic hierarchies, as described in texts like the Sefer Raziel, the book of the angel Raziel, said to have been handed down from an angel to Adam himself after the fall from Eden. In Islamic mysticism, the Sufis spoke of malaika, who reveal layers of hidden truth through dreams and inner visions. Even Christian mystics like Hildegard of Bingen reported being instructed by beings of light, recording their revelations in writings filled with radiant imagery and celestial harmony. Why was this pursuit so universal? Because humanity has always sensed that angels represent a higher order of consciousness. They're not merely characters in holy stories, but living archetypes of wisdom, love, and power. To speak with them is to align oneself with the very architecture of creation itself. It is to tune the fragile instrument of the human soul to the music of the cosmos. But here lies a profound paradox. To reach the angels, one must learn their language. And yet this language is not simply words. It is vibration. It is geometry. It is sound that shapes light, and light that forms worlds. The book that claims to teach angelic communication is therefore not a dictionary. It is a cipher, guiding the seeker to alter their own state of being so that their consciousness resonates with the angelic. Only then can true dialogue occur. This is why such texts are veiled in riddles, symbols, and invocations. They're not designed for casual reading, but for transformation. To attempt them with a skeptical mind yields nothing. To approach them with reverence, discipline, and purity of intention is to open the possibility of revelation. As we move forward, we will step into the heart of this book. We will explore what it actually teaches, the symbols it offers, the practices it demands,
and the mysteries it unveils about the hidden structure of reality. And we will ask, is angelic communication truly about contacting beings outside of ourselves? Or is it about awakening the angelic nature within? Because perhaps the angels have always been speaking, and it is humanity that has forgotten how to listen.
The book that claims to teach communication with angels is not structured like ordinary literature. It does not unfold as a simple story or straightforward set of instructions. Instead, it presents itself as a living labyrinth, an intricate web of prayers, symbols, invocations, and cryptic alphabets. To read it is to step into a dialogue already in progress, as if the pages themselves are alive with whispers from another realm. At its heart lies a radical idea. Angels do not speak in the linear words of human tongues. Their communication is multidimensional, simultaneously sound, image, vibration, and meaning. Imagine hearing a single word that feels like a song, a picture, a scent, and a truth all at once. This is the nature of angelic speech. To bridge such a gap, the book provides a system of symbols designed to tune the seeker into this higher resonance. One of the central tools is the use of sacred alphabets. These are not mere letters, but sigils, geometric gateways of consciousness. Each character is said to hold a vibrational frequency that corresponds not just to a sound, but to a spiritual intelligence. To chant them aloud is to call upon forces beyond the visible. To meditate upon them in silence is to rewire the very architecture of one's mind. Consider, for instance, the Enochian alphabet revealed to John Dee and Edward Kelly. When they first received these letters, they did not understand them as foreign words, but as living entities, shapes of power that radiated an energy. This is consistent with ancient traditions. The Hebrew letters of the Kabbalah, the Sanskrit mantras of India, the runes of the Norse, all were believed to embody cosmic forces. The Book of Angelic Communication follows this same principle, teaching that language is not invented, but discovered, etched into the very fabric of creation. But the book goes deeper than alphabets. It introduces a hierarchy of angelic beings, each governing a particular aspect of existence. The elements of fire, water, air, and earth, the movements of planets and stars, the realms of healing, wisdom, and transformation. To communicate with angels is not to summon them like servants, but to harmonize oneself with the principles they embody. If you wish to speak with the angel of fire, you must first purify your own fiery nature, your passions, your will, your creative force, so that it resonates with that celestial intelligence. This is where the book becomes more than a text. It is a mirror. For every invocation it offers, it demands an inner work. To recite a prayer without transformation is like striking a key on a piano that has not been tuned. The sound will be hollow, discordant. But to approach the prayer with sincerity, discipline, and humility is to allow the words to strike a chord that resonates across dimensions. The metaphors the book uses are striking. It often speaks of the human soul as a crystal vessel, clouded by dust and shadow. Angelic communication, it says, is not about calling the angels down, but about polishing the vessel so that it may reflect their light. The angels have never stopped speaking. It is we who have stopped hearing. To hear again, one must cleanse the senses, align the thoughts, and purify the heart. One practice described is the use of angelic hours. According to the book, there are precise times when the veil between worlds thins, moments of dawn and twilight, certain lunar phases or planetary alignments. At these times, prayers and invocations resonate more powerfully, as if the cosmos itself conspires to amplify the seeker's intention. The book instructs seekers to align their practices with these cycles, suggesting that to ignore them is like planting seeds in barren soil. Another profound teaching within its pages is the principle of reciprocity. To speak with angels, one must be willing to listen, but also to act. The angels, it says, will not waste their words on idle curiosity. Their speech always carries purpose. They guide, instruct, or warn, but they expect the human to respond with action. To ignore their guidance is to lose their trust, as one would lose the trust of a wise teacher whose counsel is repeatedly disregarded. In essence, the first half of the book teaches that communication with angels is less about magical techniques and more about transformation of the self. The alphabets, prayers, and invocations are like keys, but the lock is the human heart, and it must be prepared to open. The seeker must cultivate purity, discipline, humility, and above all, the willingness to change. Without this, the words remain lifeless symbols. With it, they become a living dialogue between the finite and the infinite. So when someone asks, "How do I speak with angels?" the book answers in riddles. It whispers, "Do not try to summon them into your world. Instead, ascend into theirs."
If the first half of the book teaches us how to prepare ourselves to hear the voices of angels, the second half dares to go further. It does not merely describe contact, but communion, an ongoing dialogue between human and celestial minds. Here, the seeker is introduced to subtler, more dangerous, and more luminous aspects of angelic speech. The book insists that angelic language is not static. It is alive, fluid, ever-changing, like fire that reshapes itself with every flicker. What you hear is not only what the angel says, but also what the angel is. In other words, to hear an angel is to experience its essence directly. Imagine reading a poem that changes each time you recite it, depending on your inner state, your sincerity, and your readiness. This is how the book describes the language of angels. It reflects the soul of the listener, and thus no two seekers ever hear it in the same way. To navigate this, the book introduces the concept of angelic mirrors. These are symbolic structures, circles, sigils, and diagrams that act as stabilizers for the seeker's perception. Without them, angelic communication may overwhelm the mind, like staring directly at the sun. With them, the blinding radiance of the message is filtered into forms that human consciousness can process. Think of it as trying to capture lightning in a vessel. Dangerous, unless the vessel has been carefully prepared. Yet the book also carries warnings. It speaks of false lights, energies that mimic the radiance of angels but lead the seeker into delusion, pride, or madness. These may come from the seeker's own shadow, from unconscious desires masquerading as revelations, or from darker entities that dwell in unseen realms. Thus, the book repeatedly insists on discernment. Test the voice, it says, by its fruits. If the message brings arrogance, division, or obsession, it is not angelic. If it brings clarity, humility, and harmony, then you may trust it. At this stage, the teachings grow increasingly subtle. The book describes a ladder of voices, layers of communication, from the gentle nudges of intuition to vivid inner visions to fully formed dialogues that seem to resonate through the air itself. Each rung on this ladder corresponds not only to a higher angelic intelligence, but also to a deeper refinement of the seeker's own being. The higher you ascend, the more your humanity must transform into something radiant, transparent, and pure. One of the most profound insights here is the idea that angelic speech is not limited to words. The angels speak in patterns of synchronicity, strange coincidences, repeating numbers, dreams, and encounters that arrive at precisely the right moment. The book insists that if you wish to hear angels, you must learn to read reality itself as a sacred text. A falling feather, a sudden change in the wind, an unexpected phrase spoken by a stranger, these are not accidents. They are the alphabet of the unseen. But the book does not leave us adrift in endless symbols. It provides methods of verification. One is the principle of resonance. When an angel speaks, its truth resonates not only in the mind, but in the entire being, heart, body, and soul. The seeker feels uplifted, harmonized, expanded, as if touched by a wave of light. False voices, on contrast, leave a residue of confusion, heaviness, or dissonance. Thus, the seeker learns to trust not only the message, but the state it creates within them. Another advanced teaching is the use of angelic names. The book explains that each angel has a vibrational name that is not simply a label, but an access point. To call the name with reverence is to align oneself with that angel's frequency, much like tuning a radio to the right channel. But the book warns, these names are not to be used lightly. They are living keys, and to pronounce them without proper intention is to open doors one is not ready to enter. Perhaps the most enigmatic passage describes the final stage of communication, the fusion of voices. At this point, the seeker no longer experiences the angel as separate. Instead, their own thoughts, words, and actions begin to carry an angelic quality. The distinction between I and the angel dissolves. The seeker becomes, in a sense, the message itself. This is not possession, but alignment. Human consciousness harmonized so fully with divine intelligence that it becomes a living instrument of it. The book hints that the prophets and saints of old reached precisely this state. And yet the book concludes its core teachings with humility. It reminds the seeker that angels are not ends in themselves. They are messengers, not destinations. Their purpose is to guide humanity upward, toward the ineffable, toward the source beyond all forms, names, and voices. If the seeker clings too tightly to the angels, they risk mistaking the map for the journey, the messenger for the message. Thus, the final riddle of the book is this: to truly speak with angels is to realize that they were never separate from you at all. The angel is not a distant being, but the higher dimension of your own soul calling you home. This, then, is the deeper mystery. The book teaches techniques, invocations, and alphabets, yes, but its true teaching is that communication with angels is ultimately the art of awakening the angelic within. So far, we have explored the mysteries of the book, the symbols, the alphabets, the angelic voices, and the philosophy that underlies it all. But now we must ask, how can this knowledge be applied in your daily life? For a teaching to be alive, it must not remain in dusty manuscripts or in the hands of scholars. It must become a living practice. The first and most important step is purification of intention. Before any prayer, any chant, or any attempt at angelic dialogue, the seeker must ask themselves, why am I doing this? If the answer is curiosity, power, or personal gain, the book warns that the door will remain closed, or worse, open to illusions. The true intention must be alignment with truth, guidance for the soul's growth, or service to others. In simple terms, you must seek the angels not to control them, but to be transformed by them. Once intention is set, the next step is sacred space. The book emphasizes that environment shapes consciousness. Just as you would not hold a profound conversation in a noisy marketplace, you should not attempt angelic communion in chaos. Choose a quiet place. Light a candle to symbolize the presence of light. Some traditions use incense, believing that its rising smoke mirrors the ascent of prayers. But most importantly, enter this space with reverence, as if you are stepping into a temple. The third step is preparation of the body and mind. The book suggests fasting lightly or abstaining from heavy food and distractions before practice. This is not about punishment, but clarity. A cluttered body leads to a cluttered mind. A simple meditation, focusing on the breath until the mind becomes still,
acts as the doorway. You are not trying to force angels to appear. You are polishing the mirror of your being so that their presence may be reflected naturally. Now comes the practice itself. The book offers several methods, and I will share 3 that you can adapt to your own journey. Chanting sacred names. The angelic alphabets and names are meant to be vibrated, not merely read. Choose a single name or syllable, perhaps one that resonates with you, and chant it slowly, rhythmically. Feel the sound not only in your throat, but in your entire body. The vibration is the bridge. Over time, you may notice subtle shifts, a change in atmosphere, a tingling in the air, or an inner stillness that feels inhabited by something greater. That is how angels often speak. Keep a journal beside you and write down impressions. Over weeks and months, patterns emerge, and you will learn to discern authentic communication from passing thought. But even with practice, challenges arise. Many seekers ask, how do I know it is real? How do I avoid self-delusion? The book answers simply, by testing the fruits. If the guidance you receive leads to greater compassion, clarity, and peace, it is aligned with the angelic. If it leads to fear, division, or ego inflation, it is not. Angels do not flatter, they illuminate. Another challenge is patience. The modern mind craves instant results, but angelic communication unfolds slowly. Think of it like learning a new language. You would not expect fluency overnight. The book insists that persistence, humility, and trust are the keys. Some days you will feel nothing. Other days, a single word or image may alter the course of your life. And finally, the book reminds us of the highest practice: embodiment. True angelic dialogue is not measured by visions or voices, but by the transformation of your being. Are you becoming more radiant, more compassionate, more aligned with truth? If so, you are already speaking with angels, not with your ears, but with your life. And here lies the most practical teaching of all. You need not wait for wings in the sky to hear angelic voices. They speak through conscience, through synchronicity, through the quiet intuitions that guide you toward love and away from harm. The book's rituals simply sharpen your ability to notice what was always there. So if you wish to begin, start simply. Set aside a small corner of your day. Light a candle. Sit in silence. Whisper a sacred name or write a symbol. Then listen, not with your ears, but with your soul. The book assures us, if you are sincere, the angels will answer. Because perhaps, in truth, they have been answering all along.
We began this journey with a question that has haunted humanity for centuries. Is it possible to speak with angels? Along the way, we discovered that the answer is both stranger and more profound than we might expect. The book that claims to teach this art does not merely offer a set of magical formulas or mechanical rituals. It is not a manual in the ordinary sense. Instead, it is a mirror, reflecting back the state of the seeker's soul, guiding them step by step to refine their intention, purify their perception, and awaken the angelic resonance already latent within them. We saw how ancient traditions across cultures, the Hebrews, the Persians, the Greeks, the Indians, understood angels or divine intelligences as messengers of higher realms. We explored how the language of angels is not a sequence of words, but a symphony of vibration, symbol, and synchronicity. We uncovered the deeper teaching that to truly hear angels, we must polish the vessel of our own being until it can reflect their light without distortion. Practically, we learned that angelic dialogue begins with simple steps: intention, sacred space, prayer, silence, and discernment. The book's alphabet and symbols are not just marks on a page, but keys to higher frequencies of consciousness. And the true test of any communication is not how dazzling the vision is, but how it transforms your life. Does it make you more compassionate, more peaceful, more aligned with truth? Then you have heard rightly. But perhaps the greatest secret is this: angels are not far away. They are not locked behind some distant gate waiting for a rare key. They are woven into the very fabric of your life, speaking through intuition, through signs, through the gentle nudges of conscience. The book simply trains you to listen with new ears. So the invitation is clear. Begin where you are. Light a candle. Breathe in silence. Whisper a sacred word and open your heart. The book assures us that the veil between worlds is thinner than we think, and that when we step forward in sincerity, the heavens lean down to meet us. In the end, to speak with angels is not about summoning them into your room. It is about awakening the angel within yourself. Every act of kindness, every moment of clarity, every word spoken in truth is already angelic speech flowing through you. And so I leave you with this thought: perhaps you have already spoken with angels, and perhaps you already are one, learning again to hear the language of your own higher self. The book is only a guide. The real conversation begins when you decide to listen.